Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Agency Exposed. It's almost halfway through the year. This is how I measure it. It's almost July 4th, like we're doing an observed holiday today, right?
Yes.
It is an observed holiday.
We're all in shorts, flip-flops, and
it's hot and it's muggy and I love it.
yeah, it's good.
Yeah, man, I've been biking a lot. Road biking, taking that up.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
Do you have the
my middle name.
the spandex cute little shorts and all that good
Cute,
stuff?
yeah. They don't let you bike
And the funny shoes
unless you
and
wear
all that?
Yeah, clipless.
What do you mean they don't let
Do
you
you
bike?
really?
They don't let you do it. I mean, you have to wear the stuff.
Who's they?
The bike elite.
Oh, I
elite.
see.
Some of these bikes, man, I see are thousands and thousands of dollars, and I love things with two wheels. I have two motorcycles and at least two bicycles, but I don't have a road bike.
man,
I don't have a road bicycle. I have I'd rather be
What do you mean
able
you don't
to
have a road-
pass people than to
What do you
have
mean you
them
don't have a road
pass me.
bicycle? You have a road bicycle with a Tesla battery. And
Yes,
it
I
goes
do
30
have
miles an hour.
I did build a very, very extended beach cruiser with Tesla batteries, and it's a little bit of maybe faster
But
than
it's not a
than
motorcycle.
the legal limit, but
It's a bicycle, right?
yeah, you could
Kind of, it's
consider
both.
it does pedal.
Pedaling along at 30 miles an hour.
30, yeah, I probably can do
I've
40.
seen these electric bikes everywhere in the neighborhood. No matter where I go in the country, it just seems to like these Pedigo.
The
whatever.
Pedigo, yeah, they're big ones.
What is that all about? Just kind of giving you extra boost?
Yeah,
or-
so Pedegos. So in the United States, if you have sell an electric bicycle, it can only have a 750 watt motor on it, which is about 20 miles an hour. So
it's like a law.
oh yeah, it's a law.
How big is yours?
Oh, I have a 3,000 watt hub motor on the back of mine, but I keep it under.
You have a
30.
you have a limiter on it.
What's that?
You have a limiter on it.
Yeah, it's called my throttle.
So you're 4 times illegal.
Well, yes. I also have two motorcycles. Did I tell you that?
Yes, we know
And
that you
those
have
are
two
legal.
motorcycles.
Those
You
are
have
legal.
they're antiques, aren't they?
I do have an antique motorcycle. Yeah, I have a 1958 BMW, 62 years old now,
Nice.
and it's a little baby. It's the same one. If you look up on the internet, Steve Jobs and motorcycle, it's really a very similar motorcycle that he used to ride.
He just dropped that. Did you notice that?
I know, yeah, seriously.
It is. It's a piece of art. It is. It's a piece of art. So
I thought he
It's
was
the
going to say
same
if
one
you-
that Steve Jobs
Yeah,
has.
if you look up that photo on the internet, I took that. I took that photo.
It's actually the same motorcycle.
it's a different year, but
It's really cool though.
it is very vintage and cool, and it's like a timeless piece of art. And for some reason, I look at old vintage motorcycles and like cars.
They
too.
are.
They're like pieces of
Motorcycles are
art.
really cool.
And
The design element of it.
yeah, there's something free about a motorcycle, especially when you're riding something that's 61 years old and it's, you're still doing 70 miles an hour on the thing. It's really freeing.
That's awesome. Not to go down another rabbit trail, but speaking of Brad's toys,
Yeah,
what do you got there on the desk in front of you?
Oh yeah, I just got the new iPad Pro 2020 edition. And so what I did is last fall I had an older iPad and I bought a really cheap keyboard, but still very good one from Amazon for $20, and a cheap pencil from Amazon for like $15. And I just said, hey, I'm going to see if I can use this thing as a laptop because I'm out and about a lot and it's just really convenient. So finally, I broke down and bought the iPad Pro, and I really am enjoying it. I love the pencil, the actual Apple Pencil, the sensitivity. I'm kind of an artist at heart, and so I use Procreate and just try to relax a little bit by doing some art, and then I do all my business on it, and it's so far so good. I
The
think
keyboard integration.
the
on
keyboard,
that is
this
really
new
cool.
keyboard, this new Magic.
Can you open
keyboard.
it? Does it have does it float?
Oh
Is it
yeah,
that
it looks
thing?
like a little laptop.
that's cool.
But let me show you what the killer app is on it. This is the killer app.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah,
Let
me show you.
Actually, haven't seen it in
So
person.
it's the mouse. Look at this thing. It's it's literally like a real keyboard. Like you feel like it's a real computer now with the mouse. It's pretty killer. And the keyboard, the new keyboard is awesome to type on. It used to be really clicky and stuff, and so
That's always been the
this is the 11-inch, by the way. I was looking at the 12-inch, but if you feel it with the keyboard, it's actually
Yeah.
pretty heavy.
Yeah.
So the 12-inch is even heavier probably than a laptop.
The Holy Grail has always been like
But
a
this-
trackpad on a.
But the size of that is perfect for me for just traveling. And then I also got the cell version, so I have instant on data. I don't have to connect to my phone and try to tether it and try to find a Wi-Fi, which has been really nice because I just open it up and do a couple emails and run.
So I have obviously, I have the older version of that, and
you have the Pro?
The Pro.
You got to get
I love
one of
the
those
design.
keyboards.
I know. Well, I've got the what do they call it? The Magic Case or something like that.
Yeah.
But what I think is so cool is the hinge thing. So like it floats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Plus it has a USB-C right there. You
Yeah.
plug in. The cool thing too is I've been doing the what's that thing where you can side cart, where you can take your laptop and off one click of a button. Now you have two screens right next to you, so you have dual screens, and I've really enjoyed that. So, anyways,
Congratulations.
Well, that's a great segue with
Yes.
all of Brad's toys, all the profit that he's making on his agency. We're going to talk about profitability today.
And how you get
thanks.
there.
Man, how do you get there, and how do you get all his toys?
Yeah.
So, no, but seriously, this comes out of a discussion that we had yesterday with some of us, and just continuing to scratch our heads as people who work in the agency world, people who own agencies. There's pretty much, and Ken, I'm going to let you talk about this briefly, but there's an unknown rule of the amount of revenue per head that you have as far as your team, right?
Well, I've always been told by different business mentors of mine that you want to, agency aside, you kind of want to shoot for 4 times what you pay somebody in revenue. And also from a sort of a business metric, you kind of want to be north of 23% profit margin, shooting for 30% net profit margin in your business. If you, because that's how you invest into innovation and other things that grow your company and also stabilize your company. It's really hard. It can be really hard if you don't have a healthy profit margin to ever invest into marketing or staffing up before you need it and that kind of thing. And that's key. So those are some benchmarks. And this came out of a discussion I guess we've all had. But, in the agency world, it seems like it's a cost-heavy industry. And so we're going to talk about that. And there's some downsides to that. And honestly, if you're not aware of it, I feel like, and a lot of people I find aren't, that it can hamper the growth of your business. You can be in a business where you're actually not making any money or you're losing money. It's not a stable business. You can, there's just so many downsides to that if you're not aware of it. But there are ways that you can improve profitability, and we're going to try and talk about some of the ways that we've done that, and we've discussed that, or we're thinking about doing that today. But all that to say, I talk to a lot of agency owners, and I also talk to a lot of business owners, specifically in the consumer industries, right? Because we do e-commerce, and so we see behind the scenes of hundreds of business models and financial models and all that kind of stuff. And what's interesting is in the agency world, in that industry, without a doubt, it's so eerie sometimes, but I'll ask someone approximately how many people they have, approximately how much revenue they do, in a conversation, and it'll turn out that they're doing about $100,000 per full-time employee, or, it's even not official full-time employee. Let's just say could be a contractor that, does a lot of work, but essentially a full-time team member, about $100K per. That's not enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, because that's not 3 to 4 times.
You can pay.
What you were talking about earlier.
It's not 3 to 4 times, and also,
unless you're paying.
Let's just be honest.
$10,000.
We're dealing with specialists
yeah,
who cost, on average, probably close to $100,000. And then when you take overhead into account and all that kind of stuff, you're probably at about break even there.
the thing is for me is I have to look at my business as. And this is my own model. This is my own personal model as a business owner. Is I look at my business as one of the many things in my life that's going to generate revenue, and so I don't look solely at my business as. I look at my business as a way to make revenue that I can take that revenue and invest it in other areas that don't take as much labor to make a 10% or 5% on the money. So for my model is. Let's just say that my agency is making a profit of 10%, right? Which isn't that great, though it's not bad. You'd be surprised. Some agencies are struggling to make 12%. the last 4 or 5 years, I can make easily 12% in the stock market without doing a thing hardly. I mean, I just put it into a fund and let it ride.
Right.
And not have to work hard at 12%.
And I'll just let me just make sure we're clarifying also too, because if you're listening to this, we're talking about 12% net.
Yes.
End of day, right?
End of day.
All expenses out.
This is not gross, which would be obviously,
Correct.
you bill $150 and it costs you $100 in labor. This is after everything's taken out.
Correct. Yeah. So
And you're paying yourself probably.
yeah, I mean, if
After
you're only making revenue $100,000 on an employee, we average right now on our agency, if you take everyone around $100,000 a head just for expenses, for the average cost of salaries plus all of their equipment, plus all of the time it takes to train them, plus all of the overhead. Everything, the electricity, everything, you add insurance, you add all that stuff up. And that doesn't even include any like R&D budget on top of that or other learning, continue learning expenses. You're at least 100 to 125K per head on average. So, I mean, you're going to have to build them out, to 200,000 to 300,000 a year just to actually see the type of profit that we're looking for. And you can do it. And it's doable, but you have to be really smart about that.
And you have to find out ways to innovate on that, because you can't, I would say it's really hard to do that with just a traditional model where you just sell a marketing service and you get paid $150 or $200, whatever you get paid.
The thing is about agencies is that it's all about human resources in the end of the day. I mean, our agency doesn't produce a hard product, though we might produce, websites and digital products. But in the end, it's human resources that make that happen, because it is mostly a virtual type of product that we sell. But the challenge is that, the statistic is 50% of employees don't work out, right? So you're trying to find people all the time. You're trying to find talent, or you might have an employee who's really good at one lane. Most people are, right? Most people are really good at their job, but they're very narrow what they do. And if you're in a smaller agency, maybe you're not keeping them busy all the time, 100% to what they really are good at.
And would you say, sorry to cut you off, but most of the time you're not keeping people busy 100%.
No,
isn't that unlikely?
Yeah, and we just so
it's just impossible.
Yeah, I have a model that I do. I have a top-down and a bottom-up model when I look at timing and employee time, and I don't ever estimate 100% of their time. In fact, normally I'm at around 60% of their time is actually billable.
Yeah, that's about the same for us.
Yeah,
because when you just take into account, it actually I would say has nothing to do with how full you are, because you can feel really full and still be at 60%, 70%. Let's just call it like hours that generate revenue, and so I would say it's unlikely you're going to get someone to 100% of their hours where they're generating revenue.
Yeah,
at least most roles.
Back in the agency days when I started in this business, we had different models. So, for instance, if we were hiring an art director, we know we needed to bill them at 3x, so 3 times what their cost was, or a graphic designer at 4x. But maybe like a creative director or somebody higher up would be 1x. And sometimes there'd be people that we just obviously. I mean, you're going to have people in your agency that are going to have to. You're not going to be able to bill. You have to package that into your other employees, right? So that's why you're like at 4x on an employees, because you have to pay all your overhead, but you also have people on your staff that you might not bill. Maybe there's a financial, ARAP person. Maybe you have a controller. Maybe you have other things that you have to pack in their cost in your billable hours. And so you have to factor all that in.
You have to factor that in, right? I think that's one of the main takeaways is your cost is not just what I see so many people, say, okay, even when they're estimating projects, it's like, okay, well, we've got, this person's going to do this for $100 an hour, and so we're going to bill it at $150 an hour, make $50 an hour. That's great, but you haven't factored into. You have to factor in all the other things, and there are a lot of other things. And your insurance, your accounting, your overhead.
You still have to figure in how much you value your own personal time, too.
Yes,
because it's easy to be looking at everyone else.
Well, I do believe you have to be paying yourself also.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of people may not do that. it's not unlike it's actually, we take a similar approach when we manage paid marketing and ads, because you can get, it's hard to figure out, attribution of ads could tell you one thing, but truthfully, like, you have to figure out, like, what am I making, what am I spending? And so I would shuttle back to, even in this kind of profitability world, just shuttle back to, like, what's coming in per month, what's going out per month, and, like, what does that actually look like, and break it down per employee, like, slice that data different ways. But one way to look at it, which is a pretty good kind of apples to apples comparison, is looking at it per employee. So cost per employee, right? You said yours about 100,000. We're just south of that, and revenue per employee. And here's the somewhat depressing thing to me anyway, because I'll have conversations with agencies, and they'll say, over years, and I'll notice that they're, they got about 30 people, they're about $3 million. And then I talk to them again, like, about $5 million, got 50 people. And, like, I'm like, what's your goal next? Well, I want to have 100 people, probably going to be about $10 million. Like, it's just a linear growth curve. It's not a curve, isn't it? Even, right? It's just a linear growth. And why do that? It's more headache for the same amount of money. In fact, you probably have much more likelihood of losing it all at that point too. The only reason, let's establish, like, if you're in business, the business has to be profitable, right? Like, you don't create a business otherwise you're a nonprofit, right? And that's not a for-profit model. If you're a for-profit model, you got to be profitable.
The reason that works, I think, for some people, is the more people you have, the more revenue, the more it grows. Is the only time that I think that's really a smart model is if you plan on selling your business. So if you're at the top and you're the sole owner, you have a partner or two, you guys can get a golden parachute and jump out.
That's good to clarify, right? Like, it depends on the goal,
right?
And I guess the reason I was saying before, it's a lot of people, and it's hard. This is why. But you often don't have a goal in mind, so you're not sure what you're running for. Are you trying to create a profitable company that supports and is healthy and stable and supports your employees and your clients and yourself well? If so, then that means a certain thing. Are you trying to grow your revenue so you can sell it? And that does mean a different model. Yeah, it also takes different sacrifices.
I've watched a lot of agencies over the last 25 years in this industry, and the challenge that I've had with this agency parachute model is that I've seen agencies scale up to 100 people, and all of a sudden they 25 to 30% is based on a couple of really big clients that they lose overnight, and all of a sudden their agency is back down to 25 people. So the value of their company is only the value of their client relationships and their contracts with clients. And that's a challenge of an agency. How do you build an agency? Maybe there's another discussion that actually has value that you can sell. Obviously, there's agencies like when we had a Hannah, which she sold her agency. It had value, but it also probably had some brand cachet and brand equity to it, right? Especially since she was kind of one of the first in this market to have an digital agency like that. So, like, that's one of the things too. I think when you're looking at your if you do have an exit strategy, try to look at it as, what does my exit strategy look like? And one of the things that I've seen other agencies do, and I was part of this, is that if you're an agency, maybe you're thinking like, hey, I'm going to buy the building I'm in, so that the value of my company that I'm building is not just the agency, but it's the real estate. As well, and I'm going to pay the rent with my agency, and I'm going to build equity into this property that I'm going to own. So when I'm done in 10 years, I'm going to actually own the thing, and it's going to be worth $1 million, and that's going to be part of my exit strategy. So I think as an agency, if you're starting an agency, I think that's the key for me. My model right now is that I'm not looking for the golden parachute right now, because I feel like I'm young. In my mind, I feel like I'm 25, even though I'm not. But my goal is to use the agency as a way to create revenue and then make other investments that that actually can work for me without me actually having to work hard for that.
Sure.
Like real estate and other types of investments. So for me, I have this kind of dual thing going on. Again, I think of my life very holistically, as I don't think about my
which is
agency.
smart. Yeah.
I think about how am I setting myself up and how do I minimize risk? Just like I don't buy one stock and put all my money in one stock, putting all my energy into just my business, even though my business has the opportunity for me to, the best place I can put my resources is in my business, 100%. But I also don't have it all in the business. I see my life as fuller than just, otherwise you become also obsessed.
It's basic diversification, which
Yeah.
is the way to be stable.
Yeah, and also I see it as you can become very obsessed, and I have a tendency to be obsessed, anyways.
Not you.
What's that?
Not you.
Yeah, me?
No.
Yeah, I'm very I get really hyper focused on things, and it can drive people
I mean,
crazy.
that's honestly a good quality in a lot of ways.
Yeah, for sure.
And but you know what? The counterintuitive part of that is the less you rely on the thing, the more healthy your relationship with that thing can be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about a business, right?
Sure.
Just in general.
So, with a lot of things, yeah.
Yeah.
And so if you can be holistic, if your life model should be one model and your business model should be another model, and that's something that I think we all should work on, but there's truth in that. And if your life is stable, then your relationship with your business can be more stable, more healthy, and then you actually can run that business more effectively.
One of the challenges that I've seen a lot of business owners do when they first start out as business, they think it's a 2-year term. In 2 years, they're going to be something. They're going to grow this business, and some do. And I'm not saying that's not possible; completely possible. But I haven't seen a lot of that. I've seen you have to be in the game for 10 years before you see the benefits of any business, I believe. And you have to
Brad,
at least prepare.
how long have you guys been around?
Well, we've been around since 2008 ish,
Okay.
so about 12 years total. We started off in LA, so I had my first office in Santa Monica, California. Small, and just grew from there. And it's a slow grow, and sometimes we retract, and we get a little bigger and a little smaller, and that's kind of like that's one of the things as you grow in your business, it doesn't mean that personally as a business owner, you're going to reap the benefits. In fact, I've made less money personally the bigger I was than being small and nimble.
Totally.
But the challenge with that is that typically you don't have as many clients because you can't service as many clients. But there's definitely a lot more risk and a lot more dynamics, moving parts and personalities. And whenever you get more staff and human resources, that's a challenge with humans, is that we're very complex people. I mean, people are complex. And so there's a dynamic of complexity when you add more people. We're not machines. And so we don't, it's not like scaling up a widget business that when you scale up, you're scaling machines, you're scaling production, especially automated production. That you can 100% count on very easy. Like, you can scale because there's no dynamics. When you scale humans in your business and you have more employees, it becomes way more complex. People are complex, right?
Yeah.
You have dynamics, you have personalities, and what you thought, and people get disgruntled, or at least they have challenges in life. People have challenges in life that impede against their work, right? It happens.
But I think this also talks to, what the three of us, I don't know if I will say for me personally, I can't speak for you guys. This is what I struggle with, and I struggled with, and I still struggle with, is this fine line of people as commodities inside of your business. And always this business, the traditional agency model is built around, like you said, the head count I have, how many hours are they billing, and am I profitable? Now, obviously that's good business. You have to run your business financially smart. But at the same time, there's always this kind of underlying thing of, I can let this guy go at any time, or this person, or this woman, whoever it may be, if I have a dip or if I lose a client. So there's this dance that you do with employees that you never
which
really
goes
truly
against
see
retention.
them. Yeah, they never really see them as, You don't want to get super close to them. You don't want to invest too much in them because you know that at any time you're going to have to let them go if something were to happen. Now, we all have had great employees that we might keep for years and years and years. But as you scale, people become less and less human relationships, and they become more and more commodities. At least that's the temptation.
So let me speak to that for a second. Like I think you're totally right. That is the model. Personally, I reject that model because it's not because of any other reason than I don't think it's the path that is the best path anymore. And maybe it's arguable that it was ever that, but not that it doesn't work. But I feel like there's a couple of things at play in that world, which we've seen the effects of. One being, if your business is based on humans, and those humans are commoditized by from an industry standpoint, which traditionally I think they are, then as you go up and down, you're inevitably going to you're not going to be able to retain or attract the thing that you actually sell, right? Which is the humans. And it almost works against itself. And that's where I think that model is broken. And I think Brad, you could speak to this, but it probably worked in an era when there was not much more. The job choice was less, maybe, or career choice was one thing. Like you become an agent, this in an agency. Nowadays, it seems like there's, not seems like, I know that there's a lot more fluidity that happens in the job market. And for me, so our company, I call it like a hybrid agency because there's agency services that we do, but ultimately I'm trying to build a brand that has equity and that has multiple products, one being a service that we give, others being other products, because I see our business as a distribution of experience and knowledge.
That's good.
To that end, I'm like, I want a team that I'm putting brick on brick. Like I'm not putting bricks up and knocking them down because I don't want to do everything all the time. Even if I'm just completely selfish, right? It's like, the more I have to retrain everybody alone is that's counter to where we're going. I think there's obviously a human side of what we do, which is part of it. But I think even if it was just a purely selfish thing, I'm like, brick on brick just makes more sense to me. So debate that with me. I don't think you guys would debate that, but argue. I'd love to see if there are other sides to that.
And,
where does that come from?
Well, even if you're, I'm sitting here thinking about my statement that I said, and I want to qualify many things because even if you run a large lawn care business and you've got 10 clients, if you lose 2 of your biggest ones, you got to let lawnmowers go, right?
Oh, totally.
So that's just
there's the reality of business.
There's the reality of business. However, if you are a service company, agency that offers services at a very high level, creative marketing, your professional services business, and we talked about this yesterday morning, Ken. The lawyer model, as hated as they are, at least you know what you're getting, right? Mm-hmm. As much as people hate lawyers, you're not hiring them to do. Hey,
sorry to all the lawyers listening.
Yeah. I love lawyers. Hey, you're really good at contracts, so you don't hire a lawyer to say, I want you to do this task for me, this task for me, this task for me. And then, excuse me, he said, okay, let me give you a statement of work, and then you pay me when these contracts are done. What he says is, I'm going to send you a bill for the hours. Mm-hmm. And I don't care what I do. This minute I pick up the phone and talk to him, that what you're going to pay for is the hours for this lawyer, no matter what he does.
So when I put myself through college working for a very large IP law firm in Detroit. And one of the things that I saw, which I'm going to make the correlation to agency world, but one of the things I saw is that these, especially the younger attorneys, they would be scrambling at the end of the month to complete their hours. Billable hours. So they had a mandate that they had to bill so many hours a month. right? And it was mandated. So they would look for ways to bill those with all their clients. And it was almost like they had to put the time in, right? So they're billing their clients for this time. And but I could tell there was like a lot of heat on them and stuff like that. And I think that happens in any business. But if you take that model into the agency world, I don't know that that is the case. Like I don't force my employees to do so many billable hours a month. I average so many billable hours a month. I hope that they get to a certain point, but I don't. But also we don't have that kind of relationships with our clients where we just have an open billable hour. Like what you every time they call us, we're not like the clock isn't ticking 100% of the time, and they're gonna get a bill for that phone call. Where attorneys, they may do that. I mean, I get bills from my attorneys that are anytime I call them. They have a 20-minute conversation with me. Boom, I get billed half hour.
I guess my point is, in that model, you know exactly what you're paying for, and there's no question, and there's no
and that's kind
arguing.
That's kind of the industry, though. That's the industry model. The advertising industry model used to be a little bit like that, but it's really changed. And for us, the challenge is that we give estimates and statements of work to our clients, and it's our responsibility to work with the hours that are allowed. So, there's a lot of things that are subjective, right, in our business, especially in the creative field. So you could spend more time and energy into something and not even realize it if you're not careful, if you're not accounting for hours and numbers. So now what happens is the profitability goes down on that employee. So if that employee overworks 20% of that job, next thing you know, all that profit is gone. Like that was your profit, right?
Yeah.
And it's out the door. And that employee doesn't actually think about your profit. Most employees don't think about business profit. I would tell any employee out there, if you want to be valuable to any business, do two things. Number one, make sure you're making the company money. You directly are making the money. If you're making the money and the business owner or your boss knows that, you are going to be you're going to be valuable no matter what you do. Again, as long as you're a good employee, I'm not saying, you can do anything at that point, but as long as you're a great employee and you're making the company money. And if a business is going to let you go and in 2 weeks they're going to replace you, and without a hiccup, then you haven't created any value for your time. Like there's not enough that you own if you're that quickly replaceable.
Right.
So,
and that's a good way to look at your agency too.
Yeah, but
by the way,
but the employees who care about the bottom line of your business are the ones, to me, that I'm more apt to like. Because when you're a small business and you're trying to grow, you need everybody to be that focused. Like we're a business. We're here to make money and to make profit. It's going to help all of us, right? It's going to allow us more freedom. It's going to allow us more time for continuing learning. It's going to allow us more time for growth, for some R&D, and hopefully together we can grow. But most employees, I'd say 50% to 70% don't think like that. They just think like, I'm there to do this job, and here's what I'm going to do, and this is my lane, and I'm going to stay out of every other lane. When sometimes small businesses,
and it's not for many of them, it's not even in their
DNA.
It's not in their DNA. They're creative, or they're very focused on this.
They're
or
not
they might
business
be at a
focused.
point in their age and their career path where they're not even thinking about making money for someone else. They're just like, I want to do my job really good and make and survive and pay my rent.
Yeah.
But backing up to this, I think this is for another podcast. But I just want this little caveat I want to throw out there, and then I want to shift gears on how do you get to profitability and understanding what your costs and expenses are? Because I think a lot of people are listening to this podcast going, that's all great, but I don't even know what my total cost is. How do I get there? How do I look at it? So let me set that on the side. But before I do, I want to get back to the lawyer example. I think we never question professionals, i.e. lawyers, doctors, psychologists, because and you brought up a good point. What we do is subjective, but there is this perception with what they do is not subjective. It's because they're professionals. They went and got the degree, and there is this hands-off secret world that we can't access, right? So I hire a lawyer because I'm not going to represent myself or write my own contract or represent myself in court or whatever it may be. That's a professional who went to many years of school, took the bar exam. So therefore, that professional can say, Brad, I spent 2 hours on this. Here's your bill for $1,000 or whatever it may be. Now, but we offer professional services. And I would argue a lawyer, a doctor, many times it's very subjective what they do.
Yeah.
You know, how they interpret the law, how they diagnose, the drugs they give me, how they represented me, the arguments they might make.
Yeah.
A lot of it's very subjective. I think what we need to focus on and concentrate on, and this is a whole nother discussion, like I said, is how are we constantly positioning ourselves as professionals and experts and thought leaders in our business so that we can position our business to be offer professional service, and we can charge the rates, and we take the subjectivity out of so much of what we do.
Yeah.
I think that's a whole other podcast, but I think it's a caveat of it's a mind shift. I think that we have to get to, because I see guys like, for instance, Donald Miller and a Story Brand.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a person who was an author. He wrote books, fiction books. Okay. Now, all of a sudden, he's a business pro that people pay a lot of money to sit down, go to his courses, his personal time, his what does he call it? Not his certification.
Story brand.
Yes, his
right?
Story Brand certifications, whatever. And people happily pay without questioning, is it subjective or not? It's a product. And all of that to say, again, we'll save it for another podcast, but how do you position yourself to be more as a professional services offering, whether you remove subjectivity and you can charge those rates without question?
Well, the thing is about the agency world is that you have to earn that.
Exactly.
Where maybe if you're a lawyer, you start out, the firm itself has the trust, right? And so if you're an attorney within that firm, you already come with clout. But it's probably the same thing with agencies. Like for instance, if you work for a larger agency like Chai Day or something, and you work for Chai Day, you already come with some cachet. So if you work in that environment, there's already a sense of trust based on the agency brand and the equity in that brand. So I think
the old model is you have to earn it. I still think you have to earn it with quality of work, but I think today you also can map out a plan where you can create it simultaneously.
Yeah. One of the things that I have really learned, and this has been a challenge, I'll just be really transparent here because this is what it's all about, is
It's
that
a safe place. No one's listening.
it's very safe. And this is one of the struggles that I really have. We have clients who are very smart in their industry. They've been in their industry for 20 years, and it's a very narrow industry, like a certain healthcare industry, a narrow portion of healthcare. And our team doesn't have that. So we go in and we need to be experts in their field, and we need to be able to speak the language. We need to be able to understand the profit models of that industry. And sometimes you're dealing with like even entrepreneurial people who will our clients sometimes will run faster than we can even keep up. And so immediately there's a sensibility that that they can tell you're not really that ingrained in our industry, though you've had some other good experience that you might be able to bring to the table. And they're more savvy, they're more driven, they run faster, and we just can't keep up. And I think that's always our biggest challenge. And so at that point, especially when you're an agency that manages different types of industries. And you work in different industries, it's really sometimes difficult to be that expert in certain industries where you can add the value that you need to add.
You got to know your lane.
Yeah, you got to know your lane, and sometimes it's challenging because you can't be everything to everybody. Even though you might have a good business head, even your employees might have some good business sense. Sometimes they just can't run that fast, and it's hard, and we've seen that before in the past, and it's frustrating to clients too because they're like, "Hey, I need somebody who can run with me because we're running fast and can get it." And sometimes it's hard.
I think this is where, and Ken, you guys do a little of this. I think this is where coaching, masterminds, writing, knowledge comes in because
Knowledge
you know
business.
we've all had coaches, business coaches, life coaches, whatever. We have no problem paying them for their knowledge to impart to help us get to where we need to go. And I think bringing some of that into, I know we're talking about profitability again. We don't want to get off on a tangent here, but I think it's really important that as part of profitability, part of stability, part of not positioning human beings as just commodities is putting plans in place to, let's face it, we sell much of what we sell is our knowledge, not just our creativity, not just our execution, but our knowledge at the end of the day.
I would
right?
even say creativity and execution is just the channeling of that knowledge and experience, or the imparting of it. Yeah, well, I think it's completely relevant. I mean, I don't know what you guys feel like, but with this episode, I think we got 2 here at least. So let's continue to dig into the profitability problem and challenge the model. So like, I think there's some strategic things that I'd love to plant in everybody's brain. And then we could do another episode because there's the practical tracking of profitability with tools and systems and those kind of things, process, which we can go through kind of like what we did with marketing.
Is there a model that either one of you guys follow? And I know for you, Ken, there was a turning point 4 or 5 years ago. You've said several times when you sat down with someone that said, that really asked you, how do you track profitability? And you're like, I'm not sure. And that was a turning point for you. And I know, Brad, for you, you're really big on this. You're really into the numbers and understanding profitability. Is there some basics? I know we don't have a ton of time left, but are there some basics that the person listening who says, I'm a 3-year-old agency, we're just starting to hit our stride, but I don't fully have a grasp on gross, net, total expenses, paying myself, and what I'm making?
Well, I just think like before you can really innovate your model to be more profitable, to some of the question that you asked about professional services and selling knowledge, like before you can really do that, you need to know where you are right now. And that awareness is key. And there are like probably more than we can discuss in this episode, but just tons of learnings and systems. And we've been through so many of them to try and find the ones, there's this challenge of time tracking, all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, like I would just say, know your net profit, and so know how much time you put into something, make sure that you pay yourself to do that. And if you're one person, then that's easy. You are paying yourself. If you're more than one person or you're bigger, just make sure that that's happening no matter how big or small you are. I even find like big agencies often don't know their profitability. And often that's that kind of that expanding and contracting, tends to be unhealthy from a financial standpoint. So I think this is everywhere in like my experience, but know what those are. And I try and shuttle it down to like really simple top line metrics, which are like, again, revenue per person. And the challenge though, I think, is when we're isolated in our businesses, especially if you're an agency owner that doesn't, that has never owned other businesses, or, then you can not know if you're doing good or bad or whatever. And so I've always been told to be shooting for, near a 30% net profit, end of day, like all your expenses, all your revenue, like that's where you need to be. I would say on average, like we said earlier, like it seems like agencies are at 100,000 per head on average, approximately. And that's too low in my opinion. Just in our discussion, it's just too low. Mm-hmm. But where are you on that per head? And then, where are your costs? Like just take your total costs, for a month and divide it by the number of people that you have, or the year, if you have a year's worth or more, and then you start to know your net profit, at least a ballpark measure. That's not, what's the accounting standard? That's not certified, IRS certified or whatever. But
what about you, Brad?
Do you
have any kind of tips or formula that you use? That I know this is a big question, but.
Yeah, I think it comes down to our formula is micro per client and project. So we do a couple different estimates to make sure, and then I think that's for us. It's like we give a lot of prices, estimates, and statement of work that we hold to the price. If as long as they don't have scope creep or they go outside the statement of work. So I base that model on a top down and a bottom up. So I look at projects like a bottom up would be, here's the actual cost, but then I also look at it from a man month hours. So I look at man month hours, and I have a model that I built, a man month hour. So I'll look at a project like, let's just say, just generally, we're building some website out and it's going to take us 3 months to build this amazing website. Well, how many people am I actually having on it, and what portion of their time is going to be met? So like if I know that I'm going to have a UI developer spend 50% of their time on it, right? I know what their cost is. They're not just their salary, but their overall cost to the agency. And so then what I do is I do a bottom up estimate, which is really more the real hours, and then I do man month hours to make sure that they match up perfectly. And I look at those things, and they should match up fairly close. That way I know, okay, if I'm just using 50% of someone's time, and sometimes I'll be a little bit less, I won't be so conservative. I'll actually give them more time than I think it's going to take just to be safe. And then look at that model. So that's one way that I do that, just to give some peace of mind that we're going to be profitable on a project. And then we try to adhere to that. So if we're using a freelancer, we make sure that we give them the hours. You have 15 hours to do this. You have 20 hours to do this. And we force them to actually own and take some of the risk. So if we're working with a freelancer, we'll have them say, this is what the project is. This is how many hours we have. Can you hold to this? And they provide us a lot of, with a statement of work or whatever their deliverables are too. So we try to just be very intentional about trying to keep, but tracking the hours.
Tracking it. That's the key.
Tracking the hours is hard, is really hard because we know that there's so much human error in that.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's a lot of tools that agency uses.
There is.
We can talk about that in the next second half of this, but yeah, you're right. Tracking the hours and trying to, connect time during a day and assign that to clients can be very difficult.
And one of the things and we can talk about this in the next episode, which I think would be great to talk about, is when you track hours, what you do is the employees feel like their value comes out of how many hours. Like when they start to see the actual trackable hours, they're like, ooh, only 60% of my time is actually being billed. And they start getting nervous because now they feel like it should be more, but it's not reality. And so I think there's also that we should talk a little bit about too, is how does tracking hours, how is it positive and how is it can be negative.
That's good.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, you need to get to the point where you know profitability per project.
Yes.
And that was a key turning point. We can talk about how we got there too. But all that to say, I would like to leave people on this note of, I do think it's important to think about innovating your model so that it's not producing less value for clients, like more value, but with more efficiency. And that's where you get profit. And that's through innovation. So that's systems, processes. Sometimes agencies think, oh, we're just people. We get a job and we do a job. We get a job, we do a job. I mean, there's so much. Once you open your mind to the possibilities of innovating through systems, process, organization, and other things, then you can actually really drive that.
What's the quote? The people run the processes, but the processes run your business.
That's good.
And so, and I'm still even learning. I'm learning that still. Like, how do we create processes so that it's flawless and it's the most efficient that we can be?
And how do you have a mindset that you're constantly improving on those processes, and when they become obsolete, are you willing to change them?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good
feedback.
All right, guys, good stuff. That's it. Let's end it there, and we'll continue with the part 2.
Awesome. See you soon.
Talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.